until somebody is willing to make a big bet on your success, a lot of others won't believe. They'll be on the sidelines, they'll pay attention, but they need an early adopter to make a big bet. And that's what Alan did. And in the ensuing 13 months, we pushed the raise from $7 million to $21 million.
Hey everybody, I'm Misha Horsey. This is the Business of Basketball. We have Kenny Holdsman here from Philly Youth Basketball, who has created an amazing nonprofit organization helping kids succeed in both basketball and life. He has used basketball as a tool to help kids in the Philadelphia community. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you, Misha, for having me. Good afternoon, and it's great actually seeing you in person, somebody who's playing career and post-playing career I've admired for a long time.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's awesome. So tell me about the origin of Philly Youth Basketball. Where did the idea of connecting basketball with your initiative to support the Philadelphia community, like what were you inspired by? How did it come to fruition?
Sure. Well, for starters, I love telling the origin story. I was running Arthur Ashe Youth Tennis and Education, now called Legacy, and about a year in, I had more people visit me at the Arthur Ashe Center, and they all pretty much shared the same narrative. Why do we see all of these like matured organizations that have budgets and programs and boards of directors and physical facilities popping up in our city using alternative sports like tennis, squash, rowing, equestrian, long-distance cycling, but we don't see anything nearly comparable for basketball.
Right.
And if the goal is to reach a lot of young people, especially young people from under-resourced families and communities, young people from communities of color, to use the game to help uplift young people, why do we not see that for basketball if, after all, it's the city's most accessible game, most culturally relevant game, most iconic game?
Right.
And there's all of these adults, highly relatable to young people, that want to get deeply involved in the lives of kids, that can be coach mentors, staff leaders, board members, professional service firms providing goods and services to the organization. And I bought that narrative hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
So 2014, Eric Worley, Doug Young, Alvin Williams, we got together and wrote up a concept paper. And what do you do, Misha, with a good idea? Is you gotta begin to shop it and speak about it and articulate it. And we did that and kind of spoke it into existence.
Yeah, that's awesome. And particularly too, in this community, there's so many power players, right? Like, and the problem we had in this particular city was there was more competition over collaboration. And I think this initiative is changing that narrative. And transitioning from Legacy, the Tennis Youth Education Center, to now Philly Youth Basketball, what was that transition like? Did you completely stop, working with that organization and then co-found it? Like, what was that transition?
Yeah. So my last day of work at Legacy Youth Tennis and Education was May 31st, 2015. And PYB was born on June 1st, 2015. Wow. So I had been involved in a meeting with about 30 people where the idea we had been working on, the concept paper, we presented. And a guy named John Langle, who was chairing the meeting, stood up at the end and said, all right, we're going to go do this, and Kenny's going to lead it. And I had not anticipated him saying that. And everybody said to me, Kenny, you should run this. And I said, well, I've got a good job, and I really think a black man or woman who has grown up in the city basketball community should be the number one, should lead this. And I just feel strongly that much of like social change and social impact, Misha, comes from within a community.
Right.
But I also understand when my colleagues were saying to me, no, like you've got analogous knowledge, skills, it's relevant. You know a bit about what does it mean to be a reliable and trusted ally, even though you're a white guy. We need you to lead this. You've got relationships, passion, skill. And I took that as an invitation to go ahead and lead, but on this condition.
Right.
But I don't want to be the face of this organization, which is why when you walk through the hallways of PYB, whether it's program or operations or culture, you see so many really talented professionals, the majority of whom are black men and women.
Right. Yeah, and I obviously that's important for so many reasons. I know that's representative in your staff. Is that also visible in your board and, you know, other positions of that nature as well? Is that something that's also intentional there?
It is.
In terms of representation?
Our board of 30, I want to say, has 13 people of color, I think 12 of whom are African American.
Yeah.
About a third women. We're a little light there, but we're growing. And I just think intentionality is at the heart of social change. And for us, that's about culture. It's about staff hiring. It's about building and recruiting of a board.
Yeah.
It's about professional service firms. You know, there's a lot of ways that you declare your values.
Yeah.
But I think one of them is like how you spend money, so what your staff looks like and who your vendors look like.
Right.
And then board members are volunteers, but they're highly influential, as you know,
right,
in helping to set policy and strategy.
Yes.
So that is also a position of power.
Yeah. And
who sits on your board is an indication of your values.
Let's get into the setup of nonprofits, right? For listeners who, you know, want to create some type of significant social change in their areas or communities. What is the setup of a nonprofit?
Yeah, so in a technical sense, a nonprofit organization is certified at two levels.
Okay.
One is in Harrisburg, you incorporate with the Department of State.
Okay.
And you incorporate under a category called not-for-profit. And that means that you could do business, official business, and hold yourself out as an organization that's there to do social good.
Yep.
And you can receive charitable gifts.
Got it.
And the donor can get a tax deduction from the IRS in Washington.
Right.
And part of what one needs to do is to not just have a bona fide social mission, but you need articles of incorporation and a founding board and officers of that board. You need bylaws and all of these things that protect both the donor and the taxpayer, because donations then, if you will, offset one's tax bite,
right?
To make certain that you're a bona fide corporation in good standing.
Right.
Every year, we have to stand up to an audit. And then what gets filed is a 990 tax filing that's public information.
Wow.
And it's open for everybody to see. There's full-on transparency. And then we submit with that. We're not required to an annual report. And it shows what it is we've done through the year. Got it. So the 990 comes with a management letter from the auditor. I think your father might even do this kind of business.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So you know audit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really hard for startups is how to be able to build a board, a staff, a program, a budget, and then to have out-of-pocket expenses over and above your program work to afford an independent audit.
Right.
And then to be able to afford insurance.
You mentioned a few things, sort of the behind-the-scenes paperwork and things that you got to get in order to be established. How does one get all of those things?
So what I did, and again, a full admission of privilege, I spent 19 months at a big Philly law firm called Ballard Spahr. And Ballard, like a lot of other law firms, have a pro bono practice.
Wow.
Meaning they do legal work for free to be able to, it's their give back to the community, their active social responsibility. And sometimes, people that do startups regrettably don't know that there's a lot of free help out there.
Yeah.
And it needs to be accessed. So LaSalle University has its program for nonprofit management. They help folks.
Right.
Temple University has a similar one. At the Philadelphia Public Library, anybody who wants to learn how to do research to find foundations who make grants or how to write grants.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different sources of support. The Urban Affairs Coalition will actually incubate startup nonprofits. So if you wanted to get going without doing a lot of that background foundational work, Urban Affairs Coalition does that kind of incubation.
Yeah.
So there's any number of
there's resources
out there that need to be grabbed onto.
Yeah. What are some challenges that people face and even you face with creating this organization?
The value proposition of any enterprise is really important. And by that, I mean, what's its reason for being? Yeah. And then second is what are its unique differentiators? And I think oftentimes, people who are good-hearted and well-intentioned, they don't realize that either the value proposition isn't all that impactful or it's not all that unique as compared to those who are already doing similar work.
And I think, too, just to mention, you talked about grants, and I think that's important for grant writing, too. Sometimes there's niche and there's specific wording that you need. So what is the grant process like? And, is it a long process? Do you have specific people in place on your staff who focus on grant writing?
When we started out, I worked full-time, and Eric Worley, one of my co-founders, whom you know, worked part-time and began building our program. And then we finally got enough scratch together where we wrote a job description, and it was for $21,000 for an operations and development associate. Yeah. And I get a call from Coach Fran Dunphy at Temple saying, hey, this job description is absolutely ridiculous, but I'm actually sitting next to a young woman who's working for the Temple Owl Club who can do this job. Right. Can I send her down to see you? And it was a young woman named Diana Venezia who at 23 years old jumped in head first and did some grant writing, some prospect research, acknowledgement letters. She built a donor database so we could track all the individuals and foundations and corporations on whose door we were knocking. Yeah. And so we began building a fundraising shop or arm of the organization. And one of the things that I would say is maybe even more nuanced than the art of writing a good grant is when you meet with individuals who might give or a foundation program officer or somebody at a corporation is you really need to understand what do they care about? Right. And in what ways might that align to the work that our organization is doing? One of the things that I instruct sort of younger either nonprofit CEO, executive director types or development directors, is part of your preparation should not be to walk into a room and sit down and tell everybody how great your organization is. Part of it is to build a relationship and to understand what really moves and motivates them individually and also organizationally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's key. I mean, relationship is always worth more than the money, right? I want to touch on the fundraising process of building $36 million. Am I correct with that?
It's about 43 if you 43. Count total project costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a heavy lift.
$43 million facility. Mm-hmm. What goes into finding donors? Like fundraising to me, I think personally is like the hardest thing, right? You have to not necessarily sell the story, right? But you have to really be great at storytelling. You have to, really vocalize and talk about the impact. And that's the thing that's challenging, to make that connection.
It's not been easy. And I'll take you through a little bit of the anatomy of it. And you talked about storytelling and the need for that to be like evocative and emotionally connecting. And that's right. It really does need to be. There's also an analytical or intellectual side to it. Mm-hmm. So somebody may think that the idea of not just building a program and an organization, but also a big multidimensional center, they may think that that's like a moving idea. Mm-hmm. That speaks to my heart.
Right.
But a more discerning donor is going to then want to know, can you execute it? How are you going to execute it? Then, obvious question donors ask these days is, all right, let's say that you actually can and do get this center built. How are you going to sustain it?
Right.
People are on to the fact that if there is not a really good sustainability analysis or business pro forma that proves out that you can keep this thing as an ongoing enterprise once it's open, you may not get a gift.
Right.
So there's all these like hurdles, if you will, that you need to overcome. For the first 3 years, we never got a piece of ground or a building that we could build on. And we had raised about $2 million from about 18 different sources.
Yeah.
And at that point, Misha, we were touting that we were going to build a $25 million center. And I was working out in the gym one day. Young guy comes over to me and says, Kenny, how you doing? And you know what I mean? That like 9 times out of 10, when somebody asks you that question, it's sort of like perfunctory.
Yeah, it's just
what's up? How you doing? Oh, man, never been better.
Yeah.
And this guy asked me this question, and he really meant it. And I said, his name is Andrew Yaffe. I said, Andrew, actually, I'm terrible. What do you mean? Well, last night, one of the most beloved coach mentors in our program, Joe Daniels, was murdered in North Philadelphia. And he was driving Uber right before Christmas, trying to make some extra money to buy his son and daughter Christmas presents.
Wow.
And Andrew said, really, that's terrible. Wait right here. And he runs out of the locker room, comes back 2 minutes later, and he says, Kenny, I just spoke to my friend Alan Horowitz. You might not know him, but he's like the sixth man, the super fan of the Sixers. And Alan wants to know if you can take 25 PYB young people to the Sixers game on Friday night and also bring Joe's son, Zaire Daniels, who you just told me, Kenny, was in the program.
Yeah.
And maybe Joe's grandma. And I said, sure. And we did. And then Coach Darren White Green, PYB coach mentor, gets a call the next day. Hey, Kenny, I heard from one of Alan's friends, Todd, wants to know if I can bring Zaire to the Sixers or the Eagles Dallas game on Sunday and sit with Alan. Oh, yeah, that's great. Go for it, Darren. And then Christmas Day, Alan takes Zaire, his sister, his grandma to the Sixers-Bucks game, and they get to meet the families of, Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
And I called David Edelman, who I knew a little bit, who's one of Alan's mentees and business partners. I said, David, I really appreciate this generosity, but it's amazing. Like, is there more to it than what meets the eye?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Kenny, you might not know this, but Alan lost his father when he was 10 years old.
Wow.
And the fact that Zaire Daniels is now a fatherless boy at 10, like, this is hitting home for Alan.
Right.
And a year later, Alan made a pledge for $5 million to be the leader that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And that pushed the raise from 2 million to 7 million. So one of the things that I learned, having never done a startup before,
yeah,
for profit or nonprofit,
mm-hmm.
is you can hit a lot of, singles, maybe even a double, so to speak, with your fundraising.
Yeah.
But until somebody is willing to make a big bet on your success, a lot of others won't believe.
Mm.
They'll be on the sidelines, they'll pay attention, but they need an early adopter to make a big bet. And that's what Alan did. And in the ensuing 13 months, we pushed the raise from $7 million to $21 million. So that was the moment where I think we convinced some people that we could win.
And this is going to work. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me, how is it going to work? Tell me the initiatives that you have within this facility. How are you generating revenue currently? What's the long-term vision and plan?
Yeah, so in all of that, like, grit and struggle, we didn't waste time. Like, Eric Worley built the middle school partnership program. 4 schools, then 8 schools, then 12. There's now 20.
Yeah.
And then Randy Butler built the Hoopers Girls Empowerment Program.
Yeah.
And so we were actively running programming, if you will, as a proof of concept, mm-hmm. and to show like early relevance and early impact.
Right.
And that's continued to get better and bigger every year.
Yeah.
So this is essentially now the way that we scale the programming.
Okay.
And the way that we drive more impact. All those neighborhood programs are going to remain.
Okay.
And then here, we're building an early development program. Zori Stone, who you know, directs our older youth programming. She's now has Youth Leadership Council, work-based learning, youth entrepreneurship, the I Am Because We Are program for mostly young people who have been arrested and diverted.
Okay.
So we're deepening some programs, growing some programs, and then starting others from whole cloth, like the early development program and a special needs program, things that we've not done before.
Yeah.
On the business model side, we never, before having this center, we had nothing to monetize.
Right.
What I mean by that is we were doing a ton of programs, but almost exclusively for lower income populations. Mm-hmm. And what we were not going to do was to charge fees that was going to price anybody out.
Right. Because then we lose the whole, the mission, right? What we're trying to accomplish in the first place.
So we're going to get some of the earned revenue from program fees on a sliding scale.
Okay.
Then we have all these other opportunities to make money, like our food cafe, once it's fully built, mm-hmm. should be a profit center of $300,000 to $400,000 a year.
Okay.
We have other partners that are going to pay some rent. NovaCare doing physical therapy, mm-hmm. injury rehab.
Yeah.
Zenith Wealth Partners downstairs doing financial literacy and wealth counseling. So there's probably 8 different ways that we're going to generate earned revenue. Mm-hmm. all of which are in keeping with our mission.
Are there any other, I guess, youth basketball initiative or partnerships that you have down the line, and in the plans based on the popularity of youth sports, particularly youth basketball too?
We're really partnership friendly.
Yeah.
And a lot of our partnerships are with high quality Black owned businesses. And that's really important to us as well, which is how do we use our platform and the physical center so young people benefit, families, community, PYB, but then also partners.
Right.
And one of the things that makes me so happy is when somebody in our network will say to me, yo, Kenny, that gala that you guys threw was off the charts. It was professional. It was fun. Tell me who the party planner was. Oh,
boom.
Egypt Graham, planning to perfection. You want her number? She's great. I'll connect you. And that means a lot to us that a part of businesses growing, it's opportunity, it's access.
Let's talk sustainability, right? Our podcast, Business of Basketball, is about how you create a sustainable career and opportunity within the basketball industry. You've done that. You've also created opportunities for others. Is it a grant writing process? Like, how do you create sustainability even within yourself? Because the myths is like, if I create a not-for-profit, that means I don't get paid. How am I going to sustain my life? And then how have you created possibilities and opportunities for other people?
As grants and subcontracts grow, the budget grows.
Okay.
And you write into proposals different staffing costs.
Got it.
And so, working for a nonprofit, you don't need to take a vow of poverty. And, would I or any number of my colleagues make more money in the private sector? Probably. Would we get as much psychic juice and emotional reward? Probably not.
Right.
It's my job to make certain that he and so many other of my colleagues are continuing to grow professionally, their profile, their positioning in the organization and in the community continues to grow, and their wages continue to grow.
How are you remaining profitable with now this new facility? And how far in advance are you preparing to make sure that your staff is good in terms of these grants that you have?
Yeah, we're probably, this is like industry average. If you looked at the money we have on hand as compared to the monthly burn of all of our expenses, maybe we're like, meaning if we didn't have another nickel that came in the door, we'd probably run out of money in 12 weeks.
Okay.
But the work of fundraising, there's probably at any one time 100 individuals, 30 foundations, 20 corporations, and 3 or 4 governmental entities, local, state, and federal government, that we are, if you will, chasing or courting, pursuing in some form or fashion.
Got it.
On the earned revenue side. So we're constantly looking out there and cultivating. We still have $9 million left on the capital raise. We've raised 34 out of $43 million.
Wow.
It is a really competitive world out there. We don't think for 1 minute we are the only nonprofit organization in our city doing good work. You've got schools, you've got homeless shelters, you've got hunger relief organizations. Philadelphia probably has 10,000 nonprofits. And back to my original point, you need a good value proposition. You need to articulate it well.
Yeah.
You need to back it up with quality programming. As you move along, you need data sets that prove out your impact.
That's something you've talked about throughout our entire time talking today is about if your value proposition is clear, not only are people going to buy into the idea, but the people working in it will also do the same. Before we wrap up, I wanted to sort of touch on the beauty of the game, right? And in our segment, we talk about why you are grateful for the game. So I'm going to get this basketball. And as you sign your name, sign the basketball, you're going to talk about why you are grateful for the game and what has the game of basketball done for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of this game I am forever grateful for.
Yeah.
It humbles you.
Yeah.
Bigger than that, though, is the friendships.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have made more lasting friendships from whether it was people I competed with in high school, competed against, people I met, playing pickup at Alvathorpe Park or other places in Cheltenham and Abington.
Yeah.
And those relationships tend to get built based upon one's values, one's humanity, and they have nothing to do with one's station in life. And there's not a lot of places in our city and in our region where people can find commonality and friendship across lines of race and ethnicity and age and economic circumstance. I can't even think of a better place than on a basketball court with a ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
I think personally for me, the game of basketball has allowed me to travel to so many different countries, to meet my lifelong friends. It's a beautiful game, one in which everybody appreciates, everybody watches, and everybody is influenced by. Mm-hmm. And basketball has connected us today. And the intention of this platform is to share the love of the game with the people that I talk to personally, and to also provide opportunities within this platform to say, hey, there's more. Mm-hmm. There's so many things you can do with the game that you love and an impact that you can have within the community. And so I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for what you're doing in the community. And I thank you for having Black people involved in this community, because basketball is something that Black people are predominantly exposed to and wind up connecting with and finding success in. And these experiences, these initiatives help bridge the gap, right? And it helps develop not only allies, but opportunities that a lot of people within our community don't have access to. And also, I appreciate the representation, because that's also important. Young folks need to see people that look like them in very important positions, because they can also say, hey, I can do that too. I can become that. I can be that. And so thank you. And how can people donate? How can people support what you're doing?
Yeah, Misha, thanks for the conversation, for including me. And also what you just said. I mean, you get PYB and you get me. Mm-hmm. And how it is that we use the game to lever it up for opportunity and upward mobility beyond the playing of the game.
Yeah.
And any number of opportunities we're trying to generate through our programming for kids to get exposed to coach mentorship, sports medicine, entrepreneurship, food and nutrition, mental wellness, list goes on and on. That's what we're about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We are reachable any number of social media platforms, Philly Youth Basketball, and then our website, www.phillyyouthbasketball.org. All of our program offerings are there. Still opportunities to buy bricks for the capital campaign, commemorative bricks if you want to honor the life or legacy of somebody living or deceased that's a loved one. And then there's volunteer opportunities as well. All of our employment opportunities are posted on the website, and we need a lot of people. We say that we are building a program, organization, and center of, by, for, and with the community. And although it looks like we've gotten off to a good start, and we have, we need a lot more caring people involved with PYB.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I think it was a great conversation. And everybody make sure you guys donate and support this cause.
Thank you, Misha. I really appreciate you.
Of course.